In this video, I show you how to blend colors using color pencils to create a seamless gradient between the shades on 3 different surfaces: Pastelmat, smooth paper, and drafting film. I am going to start this experiment with Pastelmat using 3 colors: blue, red, and yellow, doing this surface as a colorful surface and those 2 surfaces as plain surfaces. Okay, we're gonna start from blue on this corner. On Pastelmat, you don't need to have sharpened pencils, but having a sharp one helps fill in the tooth of the paper quicker, especially when you know that you only want one color on a particular part of your drawing. So you start from the corner or wherever you want one color to move towards the another. So this is our blue area, and then in the middle we're gonna have yellow, this is the first layer, and on the first layer on Pastelmat you always use your gentlest pressure. Okay, and this part, this corner, is going to be our red corner. You can use any color you want, but if you want to use this particular color, this is Pale Geranium Lake from Polychromos. Okay, so I'm going to start with the blue, between blue and yellow, going back on the first layer, and then as I am coming out, I simply go in very smooth, gentle, circular movements, and as you can see, I am decreasing my pressure as I am coming towards the yellow. So it goes less and less pigment as we approach the transition point. Okay, now I'm gonna go with the yellow, the same. So as I am going towards the blue, I am decreasing my pressure, starting on the top of the main band, because this is gonna be pure yellow. On Pastelmat, you don't have to constantly sharpen your pencil, but if you do sharpen it, it becomes, saves time, especially at the beginning, at the start. And as I'm going towards the blue, I'm decreasing my pressure. And then I start going, overlapping. Two colors gets overlap Next layer, going on the blue again. And this time I'm going slightly further. Decreasing my pressure. I'm almost not touching the paper. Yellow again. As we add the layers, one pigment becomes dominant in one area, but the underlaying layers would affect the appearance, and that would create the illusion of the blending of the colors, because with color pencil or other dry medium, we don't really have a mixed pigment like we have with paint. In here, what we have is a mixture, not like a true blending. It's like we create an illusion by layering. So I'm now going further with the yellow. Blue again. This particular blue is Pastelmat blue. The same principle, as I am coming towards the blending area or the integration area, I'm decreasing my pressure. I'm using the side of the pencil tip to put less and less amount of pigment on the paper. And as I'm coming to this part, I'm hardly touching the paper. Yellow again. If you fail to fill the gaps between the paper tooth with one single color, a good way is to sharpen your pencil on Pastelmat and fill up those gaps. But then as we go inside that blending area, I decrease my pressure and use the side of my pencil to blend the colors. My pressure is still really, really gentle. And one more time with the blue. It always helps if you hold the pencil by far from the tip. If you can't control your pressure and you need really gentle pressure, it is a very good way to make the pressure as less as possible. Going back with the yellow just to fill up all those gaps and smooth the blend. When I moved on to do the blending between the red and yellow and on other papers, I'm going to use exactly the same principle. So probably I'm going to speed up the video just a little bit and use a voiceover to give you the tips for that particular paper or color. In this part, I'm simply following the same procedure or the same process that I did with the yellow and the blue colors to blend them together. And the only differences now are the colors. I am using red and yellow this time. But starting with the red, I decrease my pressure as I approach the transition area, and then do the same with the yellow. I'm now using the same process with the yellow color pencil and creating circular movements, decreasing the pressure as I approach the color red. I carry on adding the layers with the same process, going further into the yellow area using my red color pencil. This process just continues, going back and forth between the two colors, overlapping between the two colors until we get a smooth gradient between the two shades. As we approach the final layers, the circular strokes get tighter, and I am filling up all the gaps between the grains of Pastelmat using the two colors, alternating between red and yellow, filling up the gaps, but still following the same process. More pigments at the corner, and as I approach to the transition area or the transition point, I decrease my pressure and I put less pigments on the paper. This process gets carried on until we get a very smooth gradient between the two colors. At this point, when I'm approaching the final layers, I'm going over the blue and yellow area again and filling any gaps that is remaining between the pigments. For the top of this cube, I have chosen to do a light green color, and this is where the light is shading on this cube. To save the time, I am just doing it quickly. I have speeded up the video, but even in the real time, I'm doing it quite fast. I'm using a shade of cream to smooth my first layer of green. On Pastelmat, it is always a good idea to smooth out one darker color using a lighter shade of the same color or a similar color or a similar shade. In this case, I've used yellow because it goes with the green, with the light green I'm using, and it just smooths the grains from the Pastelmat. On the dark side of this cube, I'm using a dark gray number 6 in Polychromos to create a darker shade of the same green that I used on the top. So the first layer is a dark gray, and I will glaze it with the green to make the illusion of a dark green on this side. As you can see, I'm glazing it with the same green that I used on the top of the cube. I am obsessed with light and shadow concept, and I always make sure that the values in any drawing, even if it's a very simple one like this, are correct. So we are on the dark side of the cube, and it needs to be dark, but it needs to still have the same shade as the green we used on the top. At the same time, the green, which is the lighter color, would smooth the grains of Pastelmat. Now I am creating the shadow underneath the cube using the same warm gray number 6. Now we move on to the next surface. On a hot press paper, the key point for making any realistic drawing is to have sharpened pencil tips at all the time. The other one is to get rid of all the line drawings, because if we don't, they will stay on the drawing and will be difficult to get rid of later. So we basically draw things and then take them out as much as we can before starting. So I'm going to do the same process as I did on the Pastelmat, starting with the blue on the top here and going on to yellow in the middle, ending up with red here. So these are my initial marks. Now I'm going to start with the top part. It's the same principle, it's just on a smooth paper. We need sharpened pencil tips at all the time. We have to sharpen our pencils quite regularly. And as you can see, I am reducing my pressure, making less and less pressure on the paper, and it will make it less and less solid color as I approach the transition area between the blue and the yellow, which is in around here. So once I got here, in order not to proceed too far, I start on the other side So again, the first lines are quite solid. I am using the hatching and circling techniques. And the same as the blue, as I am going towards the blue, I am reducing my pressure. Sharpening time. I'm sorry about the noise. I used an electrical pencil sharpener to save the time. And I'm keeping the sharpening time in the video so you can see how often you need to sharpen your pencil. This part is crucial when they actually approach each other, those two colors. So I'm putting extremely low pressure. I'm using extremely low pressure at this area, and then going on the top of that with blue with extremely low pressure. The aim is to produce a gradient like we see in the digital applications like Photoshop, when we make a gradient of colors, which is seamless and you can't tell where one color finishes and the other starts. Okay, so I'm going back on my blue from the beginning. On this corner, we're going to have solid blue, and I'm going to sharpen it now. Although it's sharp, but when we approach these areas with the less pigment, we can use the side of the pencil tip to create these little circular impressions. And as I come towards the yellow area, I reduce my pressure even more, making less and less impressions on the paper. I will travel slightly further in this round into the yellow, but in these parts I am hardly touching the paper. Okay, going back on with the yellow, sharpening it. So in this area, I'm putting slightly more pressure, like a medium pressure, because I want to fill that up, but I am making this into circular movements, circular strokes of my pencil when I'm going towards the blue area. Because blue is a stronger pigment, a darker one, we are more careful with that, with the yellow, because it is lighter, it will automatically be easier to mix because we're not worried too much. But still I am reducing my pressure as I am going forward. In every round we go slightly further. Okay, blue again. Sharpening it. Well, it's sharpened. It is sharp enough. So it's a combination of hatching and circling. In here I'm being really gentle, and this is the last point of blue traveling, so it needs to be really gentle, almost not there. I'm using the side of my pencil a lot. Okay, my yellow is okay. I'm using good pressure here, and as I'm going in, I'm reducing my pressure, and I'm not hatching anymore a lot. Most of the time I'm using the side of the pencil, making circular movements. The paper is getting saturated. On a smooth paper or hot press paper, we get less layers than Pastelmat, so it gets saturated earlier, sooner. One more time, and I'm gonna just burnish this end corner with blue and smoothly, gradually reduce my pressure as I'm coming towards the yellow. I'm going like a curved shape because it's a visual, I don't know what it is called, when your eyes trick you, and there's a gradient. It looks like a concave shape around. Then you go in with the yellow again. I think I'm gonna be too far here, so I'm gonna dab it down with my putty eraser and go in with the yellow. The blue was a bit too dark here. And if I sharpen my blue and go in again, just to fill up all these gaps and make sure that I have some impressions in this area. And final time with the yellow, going in and just burnishing this whole area. This green is very, very nice. I said it was the final, but I can see that the corner is getting green, so going in with the blue again. Now I'm starting the red to yellow transition, and I am speeding up the video because the principle of doing this part is exactly the same as what we did between the blue and the yellow. That's why I'm speeding up the video. In this part, I'm using the same shade of green, it's the light green in Polychromos range, to cover the top of the cube. As I said on Pastelmat, it is the light side of the cube, so I'm using a light shade of green to cover that. I'm using simple strokes of hatching and cross hatching to cover this area with a sharpened pencil. For the dark side of the cube, the same as what I did on the Pastelmat, I used a dark gray, in this case warm gray number 6 in Polychromos, to cover the dark side of the cube. And again, it's the technique I'm using is hatching and cross hatching. I will go over the dark gray with the same shade of the green as we did on Pastelmat, the same shade of the green that I used on the top, and then alternate between the two colors of dark gray and the light green to create a darker shade of the green similar to what I have on the top, just to create the illusion of that same color in shadow. And finally, it's time to create the shadow under the cube using warm gray 6, and the technique is hatching in the same direction and making it darker right underneath the cube. The first thing to learn about drafting film is that film is a semi-translucent surface, so we can do our line drawing on a separate piece of paper and insert it underneath the film. Then we can get rid of the lines by inserting a plain sheet of paper between the film and the line drawing. Now we start putting the colors in. The same as the other two surfaces, I'm starting with marking the colors, blocking the colors where I am going to put them. The blue is going on the left hand side corner, starting from there. So on drafting film, the trick is to go very gentle. You don't need to sharpen your pencil that much, but sometimes even a blunt tip works better. For this particular drawing, if we have the pencils reasonably sharp, not too sharp, it would work the best. I am using small, tight circular movements to cover the part that I'm going to make a color blocking. Now I am making a yellow color block. On drafting film, you can't really blend the pigments, so most of the time we need to mix the colors by making hatching strokes in conjunction with circular movements, with little circles, to go from one part to the other and making the transition. Basically, the colors are mostly overlapping each other rather than blending. I'm just blocking the part of the yellow that is going to be a solid color. And from there, I'll start doing the transition. The principles are the same as the other two surfaces. We start with more pigments at the side of each solid color at the point of the transition, and then start going towards the other color by decreasing the pressure and putting less pigments on the paper. On drafting film, it is even more tricky to do so. Because drafting film doesn't allow us to put too much pigments down, and the layers are really limited. As you can see, I am putting less and less pigment, and I move towards the blue. Now I'm starting with the blue again, decreasing my pressure as I'm coming towards the yellow. This principle can be used for any subject. I've used these cubes just to simplify the process. Otherwise, you can use this process on human skin, on a flower petal, on a still life where you have a smooth surface to cover and you want a seamless transition between the colors. I'm now using the side of my pencil, and as you can see, I'm moving my finger where I'm holding the pencil toward the end of the pencil, where whenever I need lighter pressure. The more you hold the pencil closer to the tip, you automatically put more pressure, and if you move towards the end of the pencil, you automatically use less pressure. So if you struggle like me to go gentle on the paper, it is a good way to control your pressure. The strokes are a combination of hatching and circular movement on drafting film. Making a smooth transition between colors on drafting film is in my opinion, is the most difficult of the three surfaces. I usually choose drafting film for textured subjects and for creating fairy animals, hair, anything textured, like a feathered animal or a bird would be so pleasant to create on drafting film. Making smooth surfaces like human skin or anything smooth is not easy on drafting film. The easiest, in my opinion, to do a smooth subject is Pastelmat, because it is so forgiving, and blending is a lot easier on Pastelmat. But it is still doable on drafting film. We just need to be more patient, which is not true about me. I am not a very patient person. I do my best, but it is a good challenge. And if you want to practice controlling your pressure, drafting film is a good surface to practice on, because it doesn't allow you to go harsh on it or put too much pressure on. You are forced to be patient and use light pressure. These pencils are polychromos, which are a brand that is a dry. It's famous for being a dry pigment, or less soft. When I say dry, it doesn't mean the difference between wet or dry. It's between soft or dry. I could use the term hard. It's a hard core. The the polychromos pigments. But if you are keen to do smooth subjects on drafting film, it's better to use softer pencils such as Prismacolor, which is the best for using on drafting film. I've kept the pencils the same for this experiment, just to give you the comparison between the three surfaces. Otherwise, if I want to start creating a smooth drawing, a drawing with smooth surface, something like human skin, I would choose probably mostly Prismacolor. I am basically going backward and forward, alternating between the two colors, changing the pressure of the pencil accordingly. In this part, again, I'm speeding up the video only because the process is exactly the same as what I described between the blue and the yellow. After finishing the shades and the shadows, I insert a plain piece of paper underneath the drafting film and just fill up any gaps that might be left uncovered or uncolored. Thank you for watching this video.